Hey, everybody. Guess what? Tidbit Tuesday, here it is, coming at you live from somewhere in between Oakbank and Selkirk. Today's topic is inclusive leaders. I'd love to hear where you're joining in from. And if anybody has any good news, we're looking for good news Tuesdays. Yay, thank you. You guys are the best. You make me so happy. One day I'll memorize where everybody lives. And that sounds kind of stalkery. That's not my intention. Right on. Thank you so much. Just a little bit of housekeeping here. We're together for about a half an hour. In this time, I'll have a couple questions. We can use the chat function. Gimli, nice, beautiful. We can use that chat function. Of course, you guys have found that. Most of you know as well, at the top of your screen, we've got the emoji action happening there, and also a place to ask questions if you want that to be a bit more private. Anyway, so today's topic of inclusive leaders, full disclosure here, found this wicked awesome article, and in it, it really gave us all the meat and potatoes of what we need for this topic today. And honest to goodness, you guys, there's so much on this. And when Rochelle and I were brainstorming different ideas, this was one that ended up on our list. Neither of us can remember how. So I'm a big believer that there's a reason for everything. And so I hope that you're able to gain and gather something from today. So love it. We are Workplace Education Manitoba, helping people to develop essential skills that are needed for work, learning, and life. Our vision is that all Manitobans have access to the essential skills, knowledge, and training required to determine and pursue their goals related to learning, the workplace, and life. And I would say, I know I say this every time, but honest to goodness, you guys, this topic is really for learning, the workplace, and for life. And for those of us unfamiliar with the 9 essential skills, these were identified as oral communication, thinking, reading, continuous learning, document use, computer use, writing, working with others, and numeracy. And as you look at each of these 9, the ones that I really would like to highlight for our session today would be kind of my top 4 anyway, which would be oral communication, surprise, surprise, working with others, thinking, and continuous learning, because that's why we're here. We're here because we want to be and to gain more knowledge. So part of that would be us having this sharing opportunity in the chat to share thoughts and ideas as we mosey along here. We also would like to send out our thanks for the support of this continuous learning skills curriculum that we provide for you. Employment and Social Development Canada and Manitoba Education and Training. This project was jointly funded through Human Resources Skills Development Canada and Entrepreneurship Training and Trade. Of course, for more information on all those particulars, is that a polite way of saying it? You can visit our website at wem.mb.ca. Alrighty. One other tidbit here for you. Get it? Tidbit. Our West Centre is now open in Selkirk, as are many throughout the province. Since these are being broadcasted in the Interlake area, we'd like to point you to our website where we have a lot of options for the fall training. So weminterlake.ca. And as you know, these are funded opportunities, which means no cost to you other than the filling out of a giant form. And as a reminder, we moved, those of you that were familiar with our old address, this one's shiny. It's at 825 Manitoba Avenue, right across from the beautiful library, downtown Selkirk. Can we call it down? I guess that's not really downtown, uptown. So today's agenda, just to give you an idea of where we're rolling with this, we're going to look at some stats for those of us that love stats, help validate why we're here sometimes, why inclusive leadership works, and then the 6 traits that we should work on developing to become more inclusive leaders, and then quick 4 ways to get started. This is what I have on here. The screen is where I've sourced much of the information for our session today, which is harvardbusinessreview.org, so hbr.org. why inclusive leaders are good for organizations and how to become one. So I haven't given you everything from this article, but if it's something that is of interest to you, I would definitely suggest looking it up and spending a little bit of time in it. Kind of like, well, maybe I'm on emotional intelligence train right now. It's something, a session that I was able to facilitate the other day in a workplace. And really, part of this inclusive leadership is really looking at our own social radar. And that's another one, right? Is to consider where are we at with our emotional intelligence. Daniel Goleman talks about, he's the author of Emotional Intelligence. He reminds us that in the past we were so focused on IQ, and it's not to say that, being brilliant isn't important. Of course it is. It's what gets us the interview. But our EQ, or our emotional intelligence, is what gets us the job. And so as we look at this topic today, I invite you to really consider, dig deep within yourself as to where you are actually at, not just your hopes and dreams of how you behave. All right, are we all seated for these stats? Teams with inclusive leaders are 17% more likely to report that they are high performing. So if we think back to a session we've done on team development, we look at Bruce Tuckman. He came up with this forming, storming, norming, and performing. In order to get to performing, we need a lot of things to happen. We need to be led, we need to be coached, our leaders need to participate with us, and then eventually we can get to this high performing stage where we are delegating as leaders and supporting our teams. We can't get there, it's very challenging to get there without that inclusivity. We may get stuck in storming, and some groups that are working towards being teams. Did you notice that? I didn't say teams, they're groups of working people working toward becoming teams. They get stuck in storming, and to the point where they don't even notice it anymore. I think I told you guys about the paint peeling on my front door. Some of you may remember that. It's still there, only I pointed it out to my partner and started picking at it so that he would notice it even more. So there we are, right? We have to crack things open sometimes in order to move past and to move forward. The second one, 20% more likely to say they make high quality decisions. Who doesn't want 20% more high quality decisions, right? We all do. And then the third one here, 29% more likely to report behaving, wait for it, collaboratively. Hello, this sounds like a dream team. And so if we have, as leaders, if we are able to recognize our gaps and those spaces that we are missing out on being inclusive, how much better our teams could be if we would, just do a little bit of PD, a little professional and personal development. Okay, here's another stat. Then we'll get past this math for those of us that are feeling a little weak from all of these numbers. Findings show a 10% improvement in perceptions of inclusion increases work attendance by almost 1 day a year per employee, reducing the cost of absenteeism. Is anyone familiar with the term presenteeism? We heard of this term before, absenteeism versus presenteeism. So we know that absenteeism costs organizations lots of money because of loss of productivity. However, we could have people with bums in seats, but checked out emotionally and mentally. So we call that presenteeism. Presenteeism also happens when, if they don't have sick benefits and they show up and they're still sick and they're not, working at their greatest potential. Okay, so we see this with both absenteeism and presenteeism, how much it can cost an organization. Now, if we have even that perception of inclusion, all right, so even if you have a small desire to be inclusive, let's build on that desire and let it multiply so that we are becoming inclusive leaders. So here's my question. Here's your, get your fingers out, ready to type away. What specific actions can leaders take to be more inclusive? I made myself a little hot chocolate, so I'm going to have a sip while you guys are filling in the chat here with all of your genius ideas. Specific actions that leaders can take to be more inclusive. What are they? And all of a sudden they come flooding in. This is awesome. Okay, yes, ask for suggestions and ideas. I'm a big fat believer that the people, our frontline workers, quote unquote, air quotes there, whatever that looks like in your organization, have brilliant ideas. And sometimes, and this could be dependent on the size of the organization, the culture, and all these different layers, right? Sometimes we're too busy in our offices dreaming up these great, brilliant ideas that aren't actually the greatest and the most brilliant when we could ask for suggestions and ideas from our people, to listen and discuss all ideas, even those wackadoodle ones, right? Include all staff, yes. Regular meetings, communication is vital, right? You think of those of you that maybe work in manufacturing or have had any type of lean training, you know how important those huddle meetings are. Some of them are done daily, some are done weekly, whatever it is, that communication to build that cohesiveness in a team and inclusivity is so, so key, 100%. Ask open-ended questions and allow room for unexpected answers. Yes, those are my favorite ones. Okay, Mark, you're saying ensure you consult with everybody and encourage everybody to see themselves as equals during brainstorming. And to that, I have an asterisk that says, check your body language. Okay, the truth is, we all have someone in our life, whether it's at work or at home or in the community, wherever it is, that kind of drive us a little bit nuts. And we end up viewing them through that lens. And so sometimes when they say things that we are like not totally in agreement with, or we think it's weird, we have that look. Now, whether you think you do or not, I'm going to tell you right now, something changes in your body when that person talks. Now, the other side of that is, everybody seated? You're that person for someone else. Sad, isn't it? But this is a really good point, that we're seen as equals during brainstorming. Be aware of biases, for sure, 100%. All right, develop a change management strategy. Leadership by walking around, being visible regularly. Love this. Okay, well, I guess we can go now. Guys, that was amazing. Thank you. Now, we know these things. We're saying them. We've typed them out even. Are we doing them, or are they happening in our organizations? And I don't want an answer to that. I just want you to consider it. If you are saying yes, how often is this happening? If you are saying no, and you're the person that's waiting for it to happen, make it happen, right? That's the invitation today. So, as promised, 6 traits or behaviors were identified that distinguish inclusive leaders from other leaders. Let's take a look at these. Any minute now. Yes, thank you. Sometimes the internet lags, right? This idea of visible commitment, what were we just saying, right? They articulate authentic commitment to diversity, challenge the status quo, hold others accountable, and make diversity and inclusion a personal priority. It's not just something they're doing because it's in a binder or it's on a mission statement tacked up on the wall. They're doing it because it's a personal priority, and not just because it's 2020, right? We're doing it because it's a priority. Humility. This is one of the biggest and greatest traits any leader can have, inclusive or otherwise, right? But with humility, we say they are modest about capabilities, admit mistakes, create the space for others to contribute. I love that term, create space. I use it personally in my personal life as a yoga instructor. I use it when we talk about communication. Some of you have heard me tell this story 100 times about how, as a little girl, I took music lessons, and on the piano teacher's door was a photocopied, crusty old piece of paper, but the saying said, music doesn't lie in the notes, music lies in the spaces between the notes. So think about that the next time you're in a conversation. Create that space for others to contribute, especially someone like myself who's a chatty person. Sometimes it's important to be still, right? To be still and to listen. Now, Julie, you had said this, awareness of bias, so important. They show awareness of personal blind spots as well as flaws in the system and work hard to base judgments on one's merits, right? There are some poor practices when it comes to recognizing our employees, of delivering that positive feedback. We also, this idea of being aware of our bias, whether it's what's the word I'm looking for, conscious or unconscious. Okay, one of the greatest things that I've had in my life is my big boy, who's 15 now. He challenges me on things. He'll say, well, Mom, you profess to be this way, but you just said this thing. And there's that space, practicing the pause, and I go, you are correct. It's important to have a person in your life, a colleague, a giant, tall 15-year-old son from super short parents, to tell you these things, to help you to be aware, because sometimes we can't see it. A friend of mine, and apologies if you've heard this story as well, grew up in a place where there was a lot of bias towards another culture. Fast forward, this is how she grew up. Fast forward, living in Montreal, arm in arm with her new boyfriend, walking down the street, and her boyfriend said, "Why are we crossing the street?" Well, she grew up that when a person of a different culture approaches, you cross the street. You don't share that same space. And she looked back, and it was heartbreaking to realize it wasn't a bias that she personally held, but it was ingrained. It was an unconscious bias, and it was a huge wake up. Anyway, you can tell I'm passionate about this one. I'll move on. Okay, curiosity about others. So good, right? Suspending judgment and approaching with curiosity. If we could all do that as the world in our polarizing topics as of late and our feelings, how much better would we be? They demonstrate an open mindset and deep curiosity about others, listen without judgment, and seek with empathy to understand those around them. I think we should copy and paste this and put it out for the world to see. Okay? Deep curiosity, listen without judgment, seek with empathy to understand those around them, even the ones we find annoying. Okay, cultural intelligence. This is a layer that we know we should include, and we think we do because we have a friend who's from the Philippines, or we speak another language. But how much cultural intelligence do we have, and how much of it are we using? And is there a gap there that we could maybe insert some knowledge? Okay. Inclusive leaders that have cultural intelligence are attentive to others' cultures and adapt as required. Oof. I want to ask a question, but I'm going to pause. I think that this would be a great 1-hour session. And if you agree, let us know so that we could have some great breakout sessions on each one of these topics. All right, effective collaboration. They empower others, pay attention to diversity of thinking, and psychological safety, which in the news today is a huge thing, right? We see this in workplaces. And focus on team cohesion. So I wanted to share with you, and these quotes came from that article I was telling you about. We're going to take a look at some of the tangible behaviors of most inclusive leaders. So some nice quotes here. Number one is that they are able to share personal weaknesses. And it's not like we're going to lay out all of our sins and transgressions to our team, but to be aware of our own personal weaknesses. So here's the quote. This leader will openly ask about information that she is not aware of. She demonstrates a humble, unpretentious work manner. This puts others at ease, enabling them to speak out and voice their opinions, which she values. Okay, speaking of cultural differences, this leader has taken the time to learn the ropes, common words, idioms, customs, likes, dislikes, and the cultural pillars. Heyo, like, why not? Acknowledges team members as individuals. All right, this leader leads a team of over 100 people and yet addresses every team member by name, knows the work stream that they support and the work that they do. Yesterday, I was with a group of people. We were talking about leaders with emotional intelligence, which is why I started off with that because it's still in my mind. And I invited them to think about someone that's been a leader in their life that has those values, skills, abilities, the knowledge. And this one fellow said that he recently received a card in the mail. Like, how uncommon is that? From his observation, not judgment, male boss, thanking him for doing such a good job during the COVIDs and whatever. And he said it wasn't like a huge letter. It was, thanks for doing a great job. I don't know, the guy's name is Ted, right? And how much more as workers that we will go to bat for someone like that, that acknowledges us as individuals. I thought that was so incredible. And then we have the reverse. Overpowers others. Okay, so this is kind of the yucky part. He can be very direct and overpowering, which limits the ability of those around him to contribute to meetings or participate in conversations. Now, if you're frustrated because nobody's contributing in a meeting, this could be your signal that your passion is coming out as overpowerment. Displays favoritism. Work is assigned to the same top performers, creating unsustainable workloads. And isn't that true, right? Sometimes we pile work on to those that we have seen perform well. Isn't there the 80-20 rule comes to mind? There is a need to give newer team members opportunities to prove themselves. Yucca. Discounts alternative views. This leader can have very set ideas on specific topics. Sometimes it is difficult to get an alternative view across. There is a risk that his team may hold back from bringing forward challenging and alternative points of view. Hey, so consider those ones. Do you see that happening? Today's truth, you know it's today's truth because it is in white with a colorful background, just so you know. It takes energy and deliberate effort to create an inclusive culture, and that starts with leaders paying much more attention to what they say and do on a daily basis. And here's the bonus, making adjustments as necessary. It's not good enough to say, well, that's just the way I am, or I've always been this way. It's about, we said, continuous change management or having a change management plan. Sometimes that plan for change management is your personal action plan. So, 4 ideas here. Text heavy, apologies, but it's important information, I find. Know your inclusive leadership shadow. So seek feedback on whether you are perceived as inclusive, especially from people who are different from you. Okay? Rosalind Torres, let's write this in the chat. Rosalind Torres, she's wearing a blue jacket. I know this sounds ridiculous, but it's a TED Talk. If anybody can grab that from the YouTubes, Rosa, maybe Rochelle, if you have a moment, what makes great leaders? It just popped to mind. Otherwise, I would have had it ready. But she talks about this very thing about opening our circle of influence. There are 3 things she shares in how to become a better leader. This is part of it. Spoiler alert. Okay. This will help us to see blind spots, our strengths, and of course, our development areas. And if you haven't done a SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats lately, you know, we're all peeled open during the 19 here. Why not? Bring it on, right? So we're just gonna get Rochelle to go ahead to YouTube, grab this TED Talk from Rosalind Torres about what makes great leaders. And I'm just gonna ask her to pop that into the chat because she's awesome that way before I move on, because I'll forget, even though I put it in the chat. Anyway, and of course, scheduling regular check-ins. It's not enough to deliver feedback in a once a year, in a quote unquote performance review. Having ongoing feedback, both the good and the bad, right, helps us to develop our team members and develop those relationships, to have rapport. Being visible and vocal. Tell a compelling and explicit narrative about why being inclusive is important to you personally and the business more broadly. Keep the conversation going. Okay. Thanks, Rochelle, for popping that in there. I really appreciate it. Deliberately seek out difference. Hello. Maybe this is what we're writing on our chalkboards today. Give people on the periphery of your network the chance to speak up, invite different people to the table, and catch up with a broader network. Thank you for that tidbit on that. Yeah, if you can just click on it, it'll open up in a new window for you, and you can pop some popcorn and enjoy that little vid. It's about, it's one of those 9 or 10-minute ones. All right, this next point, check your impact. So look for signals that you're having a positive impact. And this is, again, the importance of having a trusted advisor, a mentor, a trusted colleague to give you candid feedback on the areas you've been working on. We need feedback. As leaders, we need it too, guys. All right, we've come to the end of our webinar today. We really value your feedback. And so feel free to contact us at this email address, west.selkirk@wem.mb.ca. Gail will be willing to share that information with us so that we know how to get better and know how best to serve you. Like I mentioned before, we have our website, weminterlake.ca. Let's definitely take that moment to send some feedback. If this is a session that you would like to see in a larger format, an extended format where we can have a bit more dialogue, I would love to know that as well. I feel like it's something that really could be expanded on, and especially in a community format, whether that's online or in person. We can do this online as well, where we have that opportunity to have the dialogue, to learn from each other, to hear the stories, and to be able to connect with where we're at as well. So thank you so much for joining in today. Any questions, concerns, again, please feel free to send us all of that information. Yes, thank you. All right, take care, everybody. Go forth and have an awesome